Hello and welcome to Stylist Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Rachelle Cousineau. She's a stylist based between Dorset and London, and I think we got to chat in over LinkedIn, possibly?
I think so, yeah. It was LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Well, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me.
It's so nice to speak to a fellow stylist because it's quite a unique job. And I feel like you've got lots of different arms to your styling as well, which I think is really interesting. So from your website, I gather that you do food, props, flowers, events, lots of stuff. So how did you get into styling? What's your journey?
So I went to Wimbledon School of Art, and I did model making and scenic construction. Which basically meant I built the sets.
Cool.
So it was like model making, 3D. We did sculpting, full height figure sculpting. We did molding. We did paint finishes. So we worked in conjunction with the design team, the theatre design team. They would hand us a design. We'd go, that can't be made. Go back and redesign it. Physically won't stand up. And then we would physically make it. So I've always been really, really interested in making things. I just love using my hands, and I'm very rubbish at 2D painting or drawing. I did go to art college and I did do my foundation and I did do a lot of drawing, but my strength is definitely in building things and seeing things three-dimensional. So I graduated and I kind of fell in with with a crew that made sort of florals for events, big celebrity events. So it was in the late 90s. God, I'm showing my age. In the late 90s, and Elton John was doing quite a lot of big parties. And I worked with a few very eccentric designers who would call in a crew and we'd rock up somewhere and we would build flowers. So we would basically dress the sets or dress a recording studio or dress a massive marquee with loads of table decorations. And I would make it up as I was going along. I'd be like, okay, more blue ones. I didn't know the name of the flowers, but I just fell in love with it. I just absolutely loved it. So I kind of did that for a couple of years, as well as I've always really been fascinated with cooking and had always cooked from a very young age. I come from a house, my mum's American, my dad's French Canadian, and they moved over here. I have four older brothers, so I was the youngest of 5 kids. And I would go through my mum's American cookbooks and just learn how the recipes for the cakes and the American cookies. And so I just was really, alongside that, really fascinated with food as well. And in the early 2000s, I was with my husband. We got married in sort of early 2000s in London. And I just said, do you fancy moving to San Francisco? A bit bored. So we had a house. We just bought a little flat in Dalston before it became super trendy. And he was like, sure. So my brother lived in California at the time, and we moved in with him in Palo Alto, and we moved to the city, San Francisco. And that's when I really started doing lots of different things.
That's incredible. You just said to your other half, let's go. Let's just try something different. That's insane.
That's me. I just go, sure, let's do that. Because I just thought I think I was just in my late 20s, early 30s. And I just thought I just wanted to experiment and try something new. I've got an American passport. I've got a brother out there. So I had people that I could kind of see and stay with. So I moved to San Francisco and I stayed. We had an apartment in Lower Pacific Heights above a jazz bar. It was just me and Martin. And I think I temped for a little while. And then at a mutual friend's party, I met my lovely friend Billy, who's a floral designer. And then I just ended up working with him freelance. And I did a lot of celebrity events, making flowers again and I think it was the Elton John thing on my CV that got me in,
Yeah.
because one of the designers there, Stanley Gatti, amazing guy, he was best friends, or he would do the Elton John parties for the Oscars. So he just saw that on my resume, and I got into it with a crew. So we'd make these insane parties. Oh my God, Charlotte, I've never seen so much money spent on flowers. We would do like maybe someone's 30th birthday party, but they would hire a vineyard in Napa. So we'd get in our trucks, and I'm talking reefer trucks, massive refrigerator trucks, and we would drive to Napa at 2 a.m. And then we would build these insane things in this sort of beautiful fake Italian villa in the bottom of a vineyard. And I just never forget just the things that we did. And it was so much money. And they might have had like 30 people going. And we would have photo frames. Do you remember? You probably don't remember, but there was a real craze. I think it was on Oprah. They first showed it, where you'd like do real roses and make a frame of it. It was
Oh,
like
okay.
maybe like a foot deep wide frame, or maybe 2 foot, massive. And we walked in, we'd already built the frame, but I didn't really know what it was for. And we delivered it and then finished it off. And it was to frame a picture of the girl whose 30th birthday it was. And I was like, oh my God, that wouldn't happen in the UK. I'd just be so embarrassed. But she'd put a massive photo of herself framed in roses. And it was just gobsmacked. Some of the things that we did, my friend Steve, I will never forget, he'll just be like, when you walk in, whatever you do, just don't show on your face what you're about to witness. As we walked into like this property that we were paid to decorate for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And it was in Reno. And we walked in, there was a team of 4 of us. They flew us out from San Francisco to Reno, put us up in a casino, and then we traveled there in the morning. We'd had 4 days to decorate these wealthy family house. And we walked in through their 6-car garage, where we could set up all the things like the ribbon and the magnolia and all the things that we were decorating with, and all the Christmas decorations. And you went down a corridor and it opened up. And I remember Steve just turned around and he just put his hand under my jaw, because my mouth was like, what on? And it opened up to an indoor so it's in their house with a glass roof, swimming pool with trees inside. So it was like a blue oasis pool with trees, real trees. And then you walked around and there was this sort of kind of like oval shaped plunge pool, all beautifully lit by the daylight, with a fake or a what's it called when someone's like a replica of the Venus de Milo on the back wall, huge, with 2 stairs that just didn't go into anywhere, but they were fake stairs.
Oh my God.
It was like, what on earth? Yeah. So that's the sort of thing we did. We did some really fun parties. We did Elton John's new Industrial Light and Magic studios that were being launched at the Presidio. I'd sit and hang out in the morning, like, because they'd feed us properly when we were there. And I'd sit down and I'd chatting to people. And my friend Miguel, one of the other designers, would be like, "Do you know who you were just talking to when we had like breakfast?" I was like, "No." He goes, "That was Bonnie Riot." And I was like, "Oh, okay," like the country and western singer. I was like, "Oh, we were just talking about being fellow redheads." I didn't know who she was. And Chris Isaacs was there, Al Jarreau. We had it was so much fun. We did so many different things. So that was my flowers. Flowers were always my thing. But when I was living in San Francisco, clearly I was going to eat all the food, because food was amazing. And I I remember, so there's a place called the Embarcadero Centre, which is down right by the sea where the tourists go. And they had a Saturday morning market, and we'd probably been there maybe 2 months or so. And I said to Martin, let's go down and just, try to look at the market. It was quite expensive, so we just go and look. But they give you loads of samples, like in Whole Foods. They give you all the like tomatoes cut up, and so we just go there and eat all the free samples. But I will never forget. It was like they had heirloom tomatoes, the green and purple, and they were sliced open. And I ate this tomato, and I just said to Martin, "Oh my God, this is what a tomato should actually taste like." Because you just did not, they don't taste of anything here when you get them from the supermarket. And I just completely obsessed with food. I became quite annoying. So so obviously I was working as a freelance designer, floral designer. But when I got back to my flat, I would go up to, so I'd go into Chinatown, and I would just look at all the different restaurants and all the different food, and then I'd want to kind of replicate it. And we had a really lovely takeaway opposite us, Chinese takeaway. And again, the food, I don't know, it was so much nicer. And I'm thinking, was it the MSG? There was a lovely takeout over the road from me, and the lady in it, and I forget her name, it's Linda, and she would tell me, no, they didn't add any MSG. And I started to sort of go, so how do you make that dish? And she would slowly let me sort of come in behind the counter.
Yeah.
And I became slightly obsessed with Asian food and Chinese food. And I would just go to all of the local stockists where I could get all these black rice and black vinegar and start researching. And then I had lots of my friends would come over and eat my food. So I just was always cooking, always thinking about food.
It's so nice when you I could see on your face like the memory of the food and the time. It's like food has that real connection with people. Even down to like, I remember as a kid having like mash and like sausages and like my veggies and stuff, and like getting a slice of bread at the end of tea and like dipping it in my gravy and stuff. And it just brings back so many different memories, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's really San Francisco, although I'd always been cooking. San Francisco gave me the confidence, but also the ability to just go, I'm just going to do that. Yeah. I'm going to do that, or I'm going to find out. And I think Americans are really a lot more open. They're a lot more open to helping, to answering questions, to giving you a go. I mean, I knew my brother and I knew a friend of a friend when I moved to San Francisco. And within a month, I would say 6 weeks, I was working as a freelance floral designer, because people are like, sure, okay. Yeah. And I think maybe having an English accent helps, maybe, because my friend Billy would love to, he loved the fact that, if he listened to this, he'd be like, phone me up. We just had such a really great relationship. He was such a lovely guy, and I think he just loved the fact that he could boss around the English girl. Like, get you English girl, or he'd like to admonish me in public at events, which I let him do. And I lived in San Francisco for many years, and we moved back here. My oldest daughter there. So she was born in San Francisco, which she's very proud of. And then we moved due to sort of my relationship breaking down and various other things, which I won't go into detail. We moved back, and then my ex-husband was a photographer. So I have always had photographic connections. And as we worked together as a team on various shoots, I worked as his assistant, but also I did makeup if I had to do makeup or model. I wasn't an all-rounder. Anything that involved making something look nice or right or in front of the camera, I was quite good at, albeit makeup or prop styling. And when I moved back, a mutual friend of us, Lisa Barber, my lovely friend. She's quite a well-known food photographer in the 2000s. So I can't remember exactly how, but I think I ended up sort of assisting her as a photographic assistant.
Yeah.
And alongside that, I was also making my own flowers and trying to get my little floral design business up and running. I was clearly obviously needed food in my life, so I auditioned for a local cooking school. I channeled my inner cooking celebrity on TV person, and I did an audition for them. I made soup, and they hired me.
Oh,
So
that's
I
cool.
worked as a freelance. I taught cooking, which I still love doing, and I would do that as much as I could too because it's so fun. So yeah. So I came back and I was like floral design, had that coming, teaching cooking, creating like meal lesson plans for all different cuisines, Asian. Obviously, all the Asian food that I'd learnt in San Francisco. I had some Thai recipes and Mexican recipes,
Oh,
sort of
nice.
authentic Mexican recipes from my friend Lourdes. I'd sort of phoned her up and said, "Give me your grandma's recipes." So yeah, so I did that as well. So I've always kind of jumped between the sort of, but they all work together. They all kind of in some way create a path which isn't jarring because they're all involving recipes. I make recipes for every floral design I do. I wouldn't, so if I'm making a wedding with personal flowers and table decorations and buffet pieces, every single piece is a recipe. 5 stems of this, 8 stems of this, so and so, because you have to cost it that way. And it's the same with cooking or recipes. So the two work really well together. And when I could, doing weddings, I would involve food in the bouquets. So I'd put not food, but fresh herbs, mint, scented geranium, lots of. So if I could get some edibles in there, I would, because because they just work really well, and it's a little bit different. Brides quite liked that, having a minty bouquet.
Yeah, do you know what though? The smells of all the flowers and everything, when you've got a bouquet in, like, I very much remember like the smell of the roses I had at my wedding and like my perfume, my husband's aftershave, and just,
Yeah,
smells is they can hold on to so many memories. It's quite nice. It's quite a nice thing.
yeah, they do. Um, so when I was assisting Lisa, she was doing a lot of cookbooks, Gordon Ramsay, um, lots of different cookbooks. One guy, I can't remember his name, went up to his place a few times, a chef, Michelin star chef. Gosh, I can't remember his name. And I would assist her on the cookbooks. But and also lovely Bill Granger, who passed away. So sad. What just a genuinely lovely, lovely man. We did his Independent on Sunday column, which we shot every 2 weeks. So again, I was assisting her as a photographer, but clearly could not keep myself out of the kitchen. So she'd set up, and I'd make sure she had all her lighty things.
Yeah, yeah.
Not technical. I did not. If she'd asked me to put a light up, I'd be like, "Sorry, love. I'll hold a reflector." But I helped them. But then I would go in the kitchen, and the home economist and the stylist would be there, and that's where I'd be like, "Well, I could just make this." So I ended up kind of over the period of weeks getting in the kitchen and making lasagna, or being like, "Would you want me to just whip that cake together while she's setting up?" Lisa's fine. Aren't you fine, Lisa?
Yeah.
So through that, I kind of got more and more familiar with shooting food, looking at daylight, seeing how they propped it. Never really having the confidence to sort of elbow the stylist out of the way, but clocking it. And that's what I did. And then my big break, I say big, pretty big break was, I was doing that, and I was on Twitter, and I got a tweet through, or I saw a tweet God, what's his name? Stevie Parle. There we go. From the Dock Kitchen. And I was walking through, so I'd broken up with my husband. I had 3 kids under 7. I had Lola and Tilda, and Rufus was 2, 1.5. So I was juggling like a Looney Tune. And one thing I've always said, or I'd been taught by my father, who was an actor singer before he had 5 kids, was just say yes and figure it out afterwards. Which, as you can see from my life, that's kind of what I've done. So I was walking through London Fields, and it was a sunny afternoon, and I was going to get the kids from school, and I was reading Twitter, as you do, and someone said, I saw Stevie Parle, who I followed. I'd never met him, from the Dock Kitchen. He said, urgent or emergency, we need a food stylist, we need a home economist. From tomorrow, can anyone help? So I immediately DM'd him and said, hey, I'm free. He immediately DM'd me back and went, brilliant, what's your phone number? Sent him the phone number, and then just was like, okay, fine, if it happens, it happens. I immediately get a phone call from Channel 4 production saying, oh my God, Stephen's giving us your details. Do you know him? I went, no, not really. I know of him. Getting the kids, on the phone, I'm going, come on, follow me. And kids are like bouncing around, and she's like, okay, great. So are you happy to go tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, fine. Thinking the Dock Kitchen's in Camden, it's fine. And she said, oh, I can hear kids in the background. I said, yeah, I'm just picking them up from school. She said, oh, okay. So do you know where the shoot's happening? And she obviously wanted to know more about me. She's not going to so I just gave her a bit of a history, and she said, oh, you've got 3 kids. Okay, great. And yeah, you do this. Okay, you're experienced enough. And okay, did Stevie tell you where the shoot was happening? And I went, no, I just presumed at the Dock Kitchen. He went, no, it's in, yeah, it's not there. It's in Grenada.
Oh my God.
I was like, Grenada is like the country by Spain. She went, no, not that one. The one in the Caribbean.
Oh my God.
And I went, so it's like 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon or something. I'm like, she said, if you've got young kids, is that going to be okay with childcare? I went, oh, it's going to be fine, yeah. And so the kids had just gone into the playground, and she said, okay, so what you need to do is send me your passport. I'm going to get production to call you. We're going to finalise the details, and we'll send a car around to you tomorrow morning. We'll speak to you later. So I put the phone down, I go, great. And I just go, kids, run. So we just run back to the apartment, and I frantically dig out my passport. I go, and find it, phone my mum, who doesn't live in London, and just said, what are you doing? She couldn't come down. So I phoned my best friend and another friend. And so between 3 people, I had childcare.
Oh,
and
that's
that was
insane.
it. And I got on a plane at 6 a.m. in the morning. Someone came to pick me up. I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything. And I turned up at Grenada Airport with someone holding a card. And I got in a truck, and they took me to location. And I met Anna, lovely Anna Jones. Do you know the cookbook writer? She's written Vegetarian. She works anyway. So she was there, and she handed me 40 recipes and said, "This is what we're doing." And that's where I met her, and then I met my lovely friend Chloe, who unfortunately passed away last year from cancer. Who produced her on the Bake Off. She's just amazing. And I met her, and yeah, I didn't look back since. And I literally made it up as I went along.
That's an insane story. I feel like I've just been sat here with my jaw on the floor, listening to the stories.
If I hadn't have said yes, none of my, I wouldn't have met my lovely friend Chloe. I wouldn't have met Anna, and Anna, then I did a work with Fabulous Baker Brothers. So that all these things, because I I was like, yeah, of course, look, of course you can do it. I that's what I say. Don't think, oh, is it Of course you can. Like, there's nothing that's stopping you from taking a risk. And actually, I work better when I'm slightly out of my comfort zone, because I'm suddenly having to make, especially for TV, you have to make really quick decisions. I mean, I messed up. They're going to be phoning me going, "Wow, it was a long time ago." But I messed up on my first day because I guess I was so nervous, and I had 2 cakes in the oven. And there I was starting to film, and when you've got a camera crew looking at that, you can't be late. You can't have a burnt cake, and the cake totally was in. They'd given me the wrong silicone thing. It just didn't take the heat of the kitchen. So I had to. I can't explain to you how I made a cake appear so fast. And actually, the lovely lady who was the housekeeper to the house that we went, she just saw it and she looked at me, and I was like, "Can we hide this?" She went, "I'll hide it." So she took it, and I was like, "Oh my God, they don't have to taste it. It just needs to look good." Throwing all the ingredients in, shove it in the oven. And then someone walked in. I think one of the producers walked in and went, "What's that smell?" I went, I think it's something outside. I don't know.
That's really funny.
Like, I don't know what that is at all. So yeah, so that's I've done lots of very last minute jobs. I've became sort of quite well known for the last minute girl. Like, if in doubt, if it all goes wrong, I just run in and try and fix it. Yeah. And I've done quite a lot of work, which I've got through. I mean, social media is a great thing. It really is,
Yeah. I definitely get more through Instagram now than what I did before. Like, it's much less like hit and hope emails to studios, and it's more like you've put a hashtag on something and someone will ring you, or they've seen what you've previously done and just send you a quick DM, or
Yeah.
but yeah, you're definitely right. Sometimes you've just got to get out of your comfort zone and just do it, even if the imposter syndrome is like knocking at your door, going like, "Are you sure you can do that?"
Yeah, exactly. And I've always been looking for something that's like slightly, like, if I'm interested in something. Before lockdown in 2018, 2019, when I was in Dalston, I wanted to get more, because I'd worked on so many food programs and so much sort of a lot of video and some stills. But I've taught cooking, and I cook all the time, every day. All I think about is like, what am I cooking tonight? What are we going to do? Shall I try this? I'm always trying to experiment with different recipes or learn something new. And when I was in Dalston, this lovely sort of derelict pub that had been there, different guises for the last 20 years or so. Even before I moved to the States, it was something different. And Tom Oldroyd from Polpo, and the chef and just lovely, lovely man. He took over the pub and was renovating it, and it's 2 blocks away from where I lived in Dalston. And I just emailed, because of his head chef Rory, lovely Rory, put a shout out, and I must have seen it on social media saying, "We're looking for chefs." So I emailed him and I said, "Look, I'm not a chef, but I know how to cook, and I really want to see if I'd love to work for you on a freelance basis and come in." And he's like, "Sure." So I went to meet him, and Rory, just one of the loveliest, kindest man from Dublin with a big ginger beard. As soon as I met him, I was like, "I really want to work with you." And he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I make cakes, but I also cook food. Like, I love Asian food and Malaysian food and spicy food. But I could prep chef. I've never worked in a restaurant, but I'd love to learn. And he said, "Well, you could be a pastry chef." I was like, "Great." So I turned up on the day of their soft opening, and I just he told me what to do, what they wanted, and had some recipes, and that's it. I kind of got on with that. And then the other pastry chef, Andy, who was from, forgive me, Andy, if I've got, I want to say Stirling, way north in Scotland, he would be there. So when they booked me, I'd be there 8 a.m. till 4. Occasionally I'd work evenings, but because of kids and I'm freelance, I had my other work as well. And I'd come in at 8 in the morning, and Andy taught me how to make sourdough from scratch,
Whoa.
how to bake the sourdough, how to make puff pastry from scratch, how to make butter, how to make pâte sucre, the beautiful French pastry, how to not shit myself when I put things in the oven and I think it's too long, and he would like, nah, go further, and I'd be like, oh God. So he taught me how to blind bake, and I can now blind bake blindingly, because he would like, no, don't be a chicken shit, keep it in there longer, and show me how to glaze it, and show me how to he taught me so much. Couldn't understand a blind word he said most of the time because his accent, but he would say to me, what did you, because he said, I can't understand what you're saying, you're too posh. So between the two of us, I'd be there all day with him, and he was just amazing. I learned how to make milk buns. I learned how to make brioche, butter, sourdough. I have a sourdough starter that I've had because of him. I created it and now know how to nurture it. It was a brilliant opportunity. And I learnt so much. And lovely Meryl, Tom's wife, I'm really good friends with her as well still. And I see her, she's doing some work in the kitchen now. But he really, I kind of got the confidence to say, actually, I'm a chef. I can work in a restaurant. I did service and still have that slight sort of PTSD when I hear that ticket come through. Like, I worked there on and off for about a year and a half before lockdown. Yeah, and I'm still in touch with them. They're nice people, and everyone go to the Duke of Richmond in Dalston because the food is amazing. Really good French food, French kind of bistro food, but not super posh, like cassoulets and confits and things that are kind of peasant food, but really delicious. It's not peasant food, it's delicious, but you know what I mean? It's not high-end French, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really experience. And from that, I even more so wanted to see because I'd learned my sort of skills there, but I wanted to see if I took myself and went somewhere else that didn't know me, if I would pass the chef test. So I went for I keep calling it audition. It's not. It's an interview or like a test at the restaurant in the Gherkin as a pastry chef. And I was like, sure. Thinking, oh my God, this sounds so good. Oh God. So I turn up and put my apron on, and he gives me, it was exactly like, the Bake Off when they give them a recipe and it says turn on the oven, make cake.
Yeah.
No instructions. So I had to make a creme patisserie, which I could do in my sleep. It's fine. And the head chef, he was lovely. He just walked by, really friendly. Oh, the team there are really friendly, I have to say. And he sort of walked by and went, yeah, oh, that's good. Okay, next we're going to make macaroons, which my heart sunk because they're just the devil's work. I don't understand them. I don't like them. For me, they're like, those things that you get underneath the Kenwood mixer or your TV, the plastic.
Yeah, the little rubber, like.
What is the point of them? They're not even as useful as those. I can't. So my heart sank. And the thing is, I know how to do a meringue, and I know how to do Italian meringue where you pour in the hot. So it's that. So he said, have you ever made them before? And I thought, I can't lie about this, because you can either make them or you can't. I said, well, I know how to make Swiss Italian meringue, and I know obviously I've eaten them. I haven't, I hate them. But yes, in principle I do, but maybe you can like give me a few tips. And he was like, sure, make your meringue, and then I'll give you a couple of tips. So he did, and it beautiful stuff that I made, but I had to pipe it. So he said, that's great. Yeah, you've got the timings on that. Perfect. Wonderful. So I want you to make 80 of them. And he had 2 Silpat things down, and he piped the first 2. So all I did was look at him, look at the piping, and counted, because there was no like circle on, there was no like tempo.
Yeah.
So I watched him do it, and I went 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. He gave it to me, and I just carried on 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and I thought, just keep doing that, just count. And then as I sort of did my first mat, he walked behind me, and he went, "Yay, they look great." And I was like, "Oh, thank God." And then I walked away from that. He said, "Right, do you want to go up and do service?" I was like, "Yes, sure." And I went up, and I don't actually remember it. But I clearly did okay. I can't, because it was, you're so nervous, and I don't know anyone. They don't know me. And all I knew was that I had to put things on a plate in this order. So she showed me, and then they showed me all the different, there was like 3 or 4 desserts, and I just had to place them. But still, it's quite nerve wracking. Plus we're up the top of a really quite tall building, and I am so scared of heights. And there's glass around me. So as long as I didn't look behind me or to the left of me, just stayed looking at the plate of food, I didn't get sort of vertigo. Anyway, I did that, and he offered me the job.
Wow.
And he asked me how much I wanted to be paid. And I gave him a really big number, because I thought, I don't really want this job. I just actually wanted to. So I was like, I'll just give him like I kind of Googled the average pastry chef salary, and I added another 10 grand. And he went, and he went, "That's fine. Just don't tell the others what we're paying you."
Oh my God.
And I politely declined like a couple of days ago in an email, but
Holy shit.
so that's another thing, people. Don't it's not even over, because I think actually what the price that I said was actually what I would, for that job, that's how much I'd like. It's quite, it's a full-on job, and it's quite a lot of hours, but clearly that's a whole new conversation. But yeah, that's what he said, and I just was like,
That's astounding. But I am with you. Like, I think when I apply for work, or, like when I've applied for jobs in times gone by, I've always gunned in higher, because then I've got in my head somewhere a little bit lower. So there's room for negotiations.
yeah,
They feel like they're getting a saving, and you're getting exactly what you want. Whereas if
yeah,
you go in saying exactly what you want,
then
knock you down, and then you're lower than what you wanted anyway.
yeah, and that is a whole, conversation about what, I've got to the point now where you have to kind of think, you're not just paying for me to physically turn up and do my job. You're paying for all those years of experience. You're paying for the fact that I will do, I walk in the door and absolutely fix the problem or do the thing, because I've been doing it for so long. Whereas obviously if you're 18 or 19 and you're just on, it's a different situation. But no, and I think it's getting more, the salaries here are getting better. They're still appalling compared to the States. I could not believe what had happened when I was away. I came back and I was like, people are being paid £10 an hour. That's insane. And things are slowly getting back. But I would say just as much transparency as possible with money, and don't be afraid of asking people. Like, there's a really good network of people. Do you know Counter Talk?
No, I don't actually.
Right.
No.
So honestly, freelance stylists and creatives and foodie people, Google them and find out about her. She's it's a network of people that are freelance food, restaurant chefs, all those people, and they all talk to each other. And there's a WhatsApp group. So if there's work coming up, but everyone's very transparent about money, and everyone and Counter Talk, the actual corporation of people, do not accept. They won't sort of advertise positions in companies that don't pay properly and don't look after their staff. I think it came from the whole back end of, horrible chefs and nasty work environments.
Yeah.
And so she sort of set up this group that would just make sure that people were advertising jobs and paying properly and not having ridiculous working hours, and also not being horrible to their staff. But they're a really good network to get to know, and so it's getting better, I think, but still nowhere near as good as it should be at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's difficult with everyone's budget's getting cut and redundancies being made, and like it's very difficult to, as a freelancer, to then go, well, I'm worth this, and the company being like, we haven't got the money.
Yeah.
It's a difficult balance, and I feel like it's constantly a tightrope, because you also, inflation goes up for everyone. It doesn't just go up for people who are full-time employed. We still need to make all of our bills, make sure all our bills are covered. It's difficult.
And it's and remembering that your day rate, you should not be charging your same day rate you were charging 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly that.
And there's always that balance of like, okay, so if I charge, let's say, £400 a day, but I'm being booked for 4 weeks, do I negotiate? Because they're going to be like, well, I mean, because we're giving you 4 weeks work, can we pay you 275? And I would still say no. I'd say no on that, because you're still doing that's your day rate, and those are the days that you're doing. And I think it's just, but it's hard because it's trying to find, you don't want them to go, oh, just get someone cheaper.
Yeah.
And how do you, and so it's also, I think you almost want to tell all the freelancers, you want to get all the freelancers together and go, right, guys, this is it. And I don't know how that, no, you're not allowed to charge. No. So you say no, you have to stay at that rate. Otherwise you ruin it for the rest of us.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the APA do a great thing. Like if you're working on TV and it's APA rates, and it's been, they've got budget for APA, I think it's great. But on the still side, there's not that.
No.
And there's some youngsters go in and go really wild. So us who have been doing it a long time go we're not even at that. Come on, calm down a little bit. Let's discuss it. But it is very difficult to chat with, because it's so dependent on the person's skill set, isn't it, as well, and their confidence to charge what they think they're worth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it is tricky, and I'm sort of also, when you do lots of different things, it's like you can't charge one rate for one thing, and one for another. It's all very, I wish there was it's almost like you need, like Counter Talk, which are great. That's a really good one for if you're in the food industry, for sure. But yeah, no, it is a bit difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's just an awkward conversation. I think as well, being British, we don't really like having awkward conversations, do we? So that can make it awkward. And I know there is over in Manchester, there is a assistants WhatsApp group, and they all photographic assistants. And if one of them messages and says, oh, this client's trying to book me for this money, and they all try and keep at the same rate, so then nobody's getting undercut, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way for it to be done, to be honest. But that requires everybody within that group to be open, which not everybody is.
Yeah.
Some people like to play stuff close to their chest, which is absolutely fine, but it is difficult to charge. And it's difficult to have that conversation with your client as well and be like, look, my prices are going up a little bit. Hope you still book me, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think there's a few. So I've recently signed a couple of freelance contracts with companies. So, which is new actually. I've never really done that, but I guess they want to pay through their books.
Yeah.
So I don't. I'm kind of. So they've asked me, and I've given them my day rate as of from this year. And one of them came back and said, "We normally pay this," and I said, "Well, this is what I charge," and she said, "That's fine." I mean, so I guess if you're going to negotiate, you're going to try. And if they didn't really want me, then they would have gone, well, actually, we're not going to pay you that. And I'll be like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But she was like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. And there will be that. People will always try and knock you down a little bit or whatever. So,
Yeah, I think that's the thing about having your own business as well, is like knowing that that negotiation comes sometimes, and just kind of valuing your worth, because you're not just, like you say, you're not just turning up and being on set, or, you know, being in a restaurant. You're then doing all your books, you're doing your marketing, you're doing like your social media, you're answering all your
yeah,
emails, you're chasing
yeah,
invoices, you're wearing like about a gazillion hats, and,
yeah,
you know, not getting paid for all those extra things. So it does come into your day rate. But
yeah, yeah,
it's a delicate subject. I think it's quite hard to navigate. But I do hope by having general conversations like this, I hope other people then feel a bit more open to be able to chat about it,
yeah.
because, you know, we're all in the same position, aren't we, really?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, totally. And I think the more transparent people are amongst ourselves, and also the more clients are as well. Um, and especially, I mean, I don't need to worry about it because I'm not going to be in a salaried position anytime soon. But just agencies and businesses not advertising their salaries, I just do not understand why that happens or how that benefits anyone. It's infuriating that,
Yeah.
that why would you apply for, you're not applying for a job because you want to help them out. Or because you want somewhere to go every day, because you're a bit bored and don't like your living room. I mean, you're going to earn money. So, and then to put you through an interview process and still no one's talking about the money
Yeah.
is bonkers.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
completely.
it's the first thing I say. The first thing I say when a client picks up the phone or a bride picks up the phone or someone inquires, I say, what's the budget, or what are we working with, or how much is in the budget for that? Is that budget for me and the materials, or is it for just me, or is it? So I say it the very first thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it doesn't become this elephant in the room. And then if they say, well, I mean, I've had a lot of brides that will contact me and they say, I want this and this, and then I'll say, what's your budget? And they'll say £450.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yeah, maybe you should go somewhere else. So I can't help you. And as soon as you get that conversation out of the way, because it's a fact, you're not doing it for the fun of it. I mean, it's fun, but
Yeah. It's like you're not running a charity.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you've still got to earn money and make it worth your while as well, whilst it's still being fun. Because I think our creative industries, they are quite fun. The jobs are quite fun. They're not,
Oh, yeah.
not particularly stressful, really. Maybe like certain times are of getting product ready or
Yeah.
getting stuff
Oh,
on
it's
set.
just such a lovely way to be. I mean, I love what I do. I love it. I'm never bored. I'm never bored um, and just so nice that pre-pandemic it hasn't happened to me yet. So being newly back to being freelance, but just the fact that someone pays for you to get on a plane, pays for you, and for you to be somewhere to do something that they've not chosen anyone else, they've chosen you, which I always think is a major privilege. And also for weddings, like when a bride just entrusts you with, it's most, important day of their lives, or it's a really big, it's a really big event, cameras and people and relatives and all the stress of that. And I will just always love the bit where because I turn up and I deliver all of the personal flowers. I won't have someone else do it because I want to make sure that they know how to hold the bouquet. I want to make sure they know the front of the bouquet. And that bit where they just take it out of the box and then they just go their face, and then I start crying. I'm like, oh God, it's so lovely. They're like, it's so lovely. I'm like, I know. And then I'm like, oh God, get over yourself, love. And then it's so nice. It's just the nicest feeling. And it just always looks so pretty. And yeah, and then you get the guys, and I always name their boutonnieres, buttonholes, and make sure that I'm there to pin them, because there's nothing worse. And they've spent all this time making these flowers, and then they're on the wrong side, upside down, slanted over, falling off. So I have a name of who's who, and I'm just like, John, father of the bride. And they're like, oh God, who's that? And I'm like, come on. And I pin them, and they all stand. It's so funny. They all sort of stand in a line, like, and or they go, oh, I'll go and get Eric. And, oh, has anyone seen Uncle Fred? And then they all sort of stand in a line like little boys, and you sort of pin them. It's really funny. And like, off you go next.
That sounds so cute. It sounds really nice.
Yeah. So yeah.
I've got a question for you, and this is quite a broad one, so answer it however you decide. But what inspires you?
Oh gosh. There's loads of things. I think inspires me to do what?
To be so people have answered this with regards to being creative, their work, their just general life, getting out of little creative ruts. So let's go with what inspires you to be creative.
Okay. I don't know. So I think I'm not very deep, and I don't mean that I don't worry. I'm not a worrier. If I worried, I wouldn't probably get out of bed in the morning. I've had I think a lot of terrible, not very nice things have happened to me and around me. And I've just always thought, I tell you what, I've always thought you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like, life's too short. I was diagnosed with MS in 2015, and it came from nowhere. And I had that moment where I think I gave myself 2 weeks to lose it, like properly lose it, like literally, like my life is ending, or what am I going to do? Where am I? And I gave myself 2 whole hours, as long as I needed, to kind of have my massive pity party. And I mean, it is a serious thing, and it's awful, and it is awful. And then I kind of went, right, next. Like, I've done that now. And I love what I do. I love the fact that really simple things inspire me. Like, it could be, I don't know, a new thing that they're selling at Lidl, and I'm like, oh, what's this? Or I'll tell you, the last thing that got me so excited was salmon salt fat acid heat. Do you know her? She's a chef, and Salmon Rosin. I'm going to get her name wrong. Salmon Nusrat, and she wrote the book, and there was a Netflix series, Salt Fat Acid Heat. Oh my God, I just became obsessed with all of the different ingredients that she was doing. I then spent about a week on and off trying to make tahdig, which is a rice dish where you get the really crispy bottom. And so things like that, working with different people and learning a new recipe or a new skill from them. I think I worked at Petersham Nurseries, and the chef there, I cannot remember his name, but he made dukkha, which is a spice mix with cumin, and then they use it put it on top of things. I spent 2 weeks making dukkha. That's like dukkha with oil, dukkha with hazelnuts, so I get certain simple things inspire me. Literally, it could be anything, anything little that I've seen or heard. And I just love meeting new people. I really enjoy working with teams of people, and meeting people with interesting stories and finding out about them. So yeah, lots of things do. Lots of things.
I like that answer. I'm very similar. It's lots of little things, and like getting outside for a walk with the dog, or I might see someone's photographed something and I'm like, oh, that's given me an idea, or it's colours, or it's something
Yeah,
else. And there's lots of little things. And I think that's how our creative minds work. I think the more I chat to lots of different creatives from lots of different disciplines, the more I realise we're all similar in the same sense that we pull inspiration from so many people and so many places. It's not just one specific thing. And
yeah,
that's why I like asking, because it's interesting to hear where you're pulling inspiration from.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I've really enjoyed listening to all your stories and finding out a bit more about you. And I'm just astounded. My jaw has literally been on the floor most of the time listening to all your San Francisco stories.
There's many more of those, but maybe we'll do that when we're not on air. But yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm so sorry we kept missing each other, and I'm so glad that we finally managed to find a time to sort of chat and catch up.
Me too. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow, and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!